Hey guys, it's been a while, hasn't it? In this video, I will go over my top 5 tips for optimizing and increasing sales on the auction house. Yes, I understand that the state of the game may not be at its best, which does affect your auction house profits, but consider these tips as my best practices you can universally apply to any patch of the game, regardless of what state it is in. That being said, according to a recent interview, it does seem like the devs are taking player feedback more into account for patch 8.2. So let's cross our fingers for that. Anyhow, without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Counting down from number 5, we have doing profession and expulsum shuffles. More specifically, this method generally involves tailoring, leatherworking, and to a lesser extent blacksmithing, which provides scrappable and disenchantable crafted items. Instead of buying greens to disenchant and scrap, it can be cheaper to craft your own and just buy the raw crafting mats. As of the current version of the game, crafting green bracers is the most cost efficient. For my server, the tailoring bracers are the cheapest to make, but whether you should craft those, the leatherworking bracers, or even the blacksmithing ones will always depend on the current mat prices. As such, it helps tremendously to check the auction house frequently for cheap BFA materials of all types, which even if you don't use for crafting, you can even just flip if you manage to snag a great deal. What I like to do on my tailor is to periodically check for cheap cloth, then craft a batch of bracers to send out to my other crafters for both scrapping and disenchanting. My general rule of thumb is that the bracers that stay green I will scrap, while those that proc blue I will disenchant for shards, since blue and green bracers do not differ in terms of their scrapping outputs. As you can see here, I like to scrap the bracers on my blacksmith to make all sorts of gear, although it can get a little tedious, but still is efficient for gold making. Next, I'll log on to my enchanter and collect the leftover blue bracers. One thing that many people don't realize is that when they calculate how profitable a certain craft is, they don't take into account the cheaper materials one can obtain from shuffling even with old world crafts such as the various mounts. This often creates the misconception that those certain crafts are not profitable at all, when in fact the people making them are willing to list them at such low prices precisely because of how cheaply they got their materials in the first place. Next, at number 4, we have timing the markets. Knowing the best times to buy and sell a certain item can really help to maximize your profits. There are in fact a ton of things you can time, such as the weekly reset, new seasons and raids, holidays, and Warfront contributions. For instance, raid consumables will be the most expensive on the days when your server's guilds are the most active. In a similar vein, they will also see increased demand during the release of a new raid or season. Consumables and rare mats also become more expensive when Warfront Contribution Quests require them. I personally have capitalized on being one of the first people to sell contribution items right after the daily reset and made upwards of 20,000 gold in a matter of minutes, as you can actually see here with my sales of the grilled catfish. Lastly, time-limited rewards that are only obtainable during a certain in-game holiday will usually see increased supply and thus lower prices during the holiday and increased prices after the holiday expires. Now at number 3, we have using the TSM add-on and desktop app to help you check profit margins and prices right in your inventory and crafting window. You can use the tooltips they provide to help you judge the best way to spend your mats at that given moment. Another useful piece of information from the tooltip is the daily sale frequency. Combined with your own personal experience of how frequently a specific item you post sells on your server and for what price range, this can be very helpful for determining the viability of a specific craft. I can't really give you a specific number to look for, as both the supply and demand are dependent on your server, but I can tell you that items with a sale frequency of below 0.1 are generally going to take a long time to sell. Next up, at number 2, we have posting auctions in various stack sizes. This is basically selling in stack sizes that people prefer, which sounds simple, but actually can vary quite a bit depending on what you're trying to sell. For instance, Warfront contributions are best sold in stack sizes that the given quest requires. Otherwise, raw mats and consumables can be sold in a variety of sizes. For raw mats, you can sell them in amounts that major crafts require. in bulk for bulk crafts, and in singles for those who just need a few more of something, as long as the cost to list them isn't too ridiculous, or even pretty looking stacks like 10 or 50. A similar philosophy can be applied to consumables, perhaps leaning more towards smaller stack sizes. Generally, you'll see the most sales for even one type of item if you try to cater to a variety of customer preferences and thus stack sizes. Lastly, my final tip is to understand the auction house meta of your server and in general. The more experience you have selling a particular item, the more you'll have a feel for how many you should sell, how frequently you should post it, and how much you can actually charge for it. It takes experience and a good understanding of market cycles to play the auction house the most effectively. Not only that, but you want to optimize your own daily schedule around this, for example, with how often you actually can and should log into the game to post and repost auctions. Also, understanding the actual PvE and PvP metagame can be important too. If you know during a given patch which secondary stats are the most valuable, and even which classes are the most powerful, that will help you price your items more appropriately as well. A good example of this is how among all the weapon and ring enchants, the ones that boost haste have been the best sellers, at least on my server. This not only tells me to craft more of these versus the other ones, but also allows me to spend my enchanting mats more efficiently. All in all, getting experience on a given server with selling a variety of items can help you eke out advantages. And that was my top 5 tips for getting an edge on the auction house. To recap, we have shuffling for disenchanting mats and expulsum as well as old world mats, timing the various market cycles, using the TSM tooltips to your advantage, tailoring your stack sizes to buyer preferences, and learning the auction house metagame of your server and the current patch. The combination of all of these methods have served me well throughout all these years of gold making, and from now on I hope they will be just as helpful to you as they have been to me. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for more cutting edge videos on gold making. By the way, I almost never post repetitive content, so feel free to check out my older videos that are still relevant as well. Here's to hoping patch 8.2 will be great, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.